16th of this month was a rather special day as Northern State University voted to suspend its wrestling program. But in light of the pressure from all the supporters of wrestling, Northern State, the president and director of athletics, have announced that they will continue their wrestling program. To join us now and talk a little bit more about it is the outgoing head coach, Pat Timm. Pat, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Good. So let's talk a bit about the timeline. You announced you're leaving the program in February. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Right away in March, I guess. Right at the end of February. Yep.
then on the 16th of February, they announced that they're going to dismantle the wrestling program.
Actually, as March 16th.
March 16th. Pardon me. March 16th. So end of February, and then we go to the end of the season, and the athletic director determines that this is not a viable program and that it would either suspend or eliminate its wrestling program. What was your initial response when you heard this?
Just heartbroken. Felt like you just got gutted. So it was, and then anger sets in a little bit, and trying to figure out what we could do to not let that happen. So that's kind of first was just reaction of disbelief, and then the second is get into mode to figure out what we can do to help this program.
A comprehensive review was done and examined the long-term viability of the competitive wrestling program. What they did is threw their hands up and said, we're just not willing to put a lot of effort into it, at least from my point of view. Is that about what happened?
Yeah, I think it kind of did. When you put a 2-year suspension on something, I think that's pretty tough to maybe financially support that. So I think they kind of thought maybe just go away, and that's kind of my thoughts. But like I said, with what happened after that, we definitely felt like we got a lot of support.
So going back, as I like to do, I'd like to go back and look at the tradition of a program. And there's a rich tradition of success in the sport. Can you talk a bit about this? Because, quite frankly, multiple national champs, 40 All-Americans over the years, seems like your alumni base is very strong. They couldn't have dug too deep, in my mind's eye anyway, to determine its viability. If, in fact, they did, they would have seen what I've seen.
Yeah, and that's kind of, how I looked at it, too. I thought for what kind of support's been for wrestling over the years, I thought we've done quite well, especially on the national stage. That's the big thing, for most wrestling coaches. But, the conference level, we've done well over the years on that too. We just kind of had a lull on that here the last 7, and it was just tough. We're in probably one of the toughest, if not the toughest conference in the nation, and with the NSIC, with the NCC schools coming in, later on. But when you look back at everything, we've had 5 national champs in our history, multiple 2 4-time All-Americans, multiple conference champs, and like you said, 40 All-Americans, and that's not counting academic, All-American teams and things like that. So there is a lot of success for the lack of support maybe they thought we had, and we as coaches kind of just keep moving ahead and doing the best you got with what you have, and that's kind of what I always thought we needed to do, and that's kind of obviously the model was broken and it needed to be fixed.
Well, there was, and doing a little more comparative analysis, if you will, within the NSIC, NSU currently, and prior to, I should say, prior to the announcement that came out after the one we're talking about, there was not an even playing ground. In other words, when it comes to athletic scholarships offered, NSU currently offered had offered the lowest number of athletic scholarships in terms of wrestling. You were the coach. There was no paid assistant, surely no full-time paid assistant. I know NSU funds all of its athletic scholarships for the 15 NCAA Division II sports programmings or sports programs that it offers, and it's through external fundraising. Generally speaking, most fundraising for university programs are external. The money has to come from somewhere. Has that changed, and if so, how?
Well, I think over the years we've done what we needed to do, fundraising as far as operating budget and doing the things we need to do to compete. As far as extra, as far as assistant coaches, things like that, that hasn't been there. The money just wasn't available for that. Now with the amount of money raised, I feel they should have one, a full-time assistant, two, possibly raising scholarship dollars, by two possibly. I haven't heard exact numbers, as far as where things are at, but the amount of money raised was for 5 years, so it's a 5-year commitment to get this sport going, and then through that, hopefully they're going to continue to fundraise to make sure this never happens again.
All right, so talk a bit about uh, talking to the athletes initially, letting them know, and then the news spread. What was the reaction of the student athletes? I mean, one could only guess.
Yeah, it was right after coming back from national tournament. We had an All-American, Joe Gomez, at 197, and we had a meeting at 4 o'clock that Monday, right after the national tournament. So, a lot of the guys thought maybe it was congratulations, but it kind of was. But then it was, hey, we're going to suspend the program for 2 years. So you guys got a blanket release. You can look wherever you want, do whatever you want. And I just found that out an hour before the meeting. So, I think it's just, again, shock and, confusion. What do I do next? That's a lot of hurt feelings. And that's with any type of decision like this, whatever team it is, you're going to have that. And, then it was just trying to just get over that, that first day, and then, get to the next and figure out what they needed to do. And that's kind of how things went. Things are still going that way actually right now.
So after the news gets out, you start organizing. You talk with Mike Moyer, the NWCA, and a valiant effort. Um, and it seems that Mike's primary duty these days is putting out fires, and this one was roaring very brightly, very hot. And the outpouring of support that you were able to generate from wrestling fans from around the country and from those that are directly related to the university was phenomenal, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was humbled every day to see just the type of support, financial support, alumni. I was here for 15 years, so I know a lot of the alumni, and especially the ones that I coached, and a lot of outpouring support from everyone, not just alumni, but the community. I mean, the community stepped up in a big way, and just unknown people. So it's kind of, our cause got to a lot of people, and that's how we raised the money so fast.
Pledges exceeded the targeted $70,000 per year for 5 years. That money will go directly into the wrestling program to support scholarships, operating budgets, and the hiring of an assistant coach. Would that have, if that had happened prior to uh, your resignation, would you have resigned?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. It's a combination of maybe those many years of not having assistants, not having, the financial support that we needed. I think that kind of weighed on me. I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, if this would have happened, I would definitely probably, thought about that. I'd probably want to continue to coach, but, I just think I got worn down a little bit, and, it's just kind of how things went.
We're talking with Coach Pat Timm, the outgoing head coach for NSU, Northern State University in Aberdeen, South Dakota. A challenging time is how Josh Moon described it. Of course, Todd Jordre and others have been on board, said the foundation has received pledges for the next 5 years to elevate the program to a competitive level, both within the NSIC and the NCAA Division II level. Um, and perhaps a fresh view. I think Gable said it. Head coach in place for a number of years at times can get stale, but at the same time, I got to believe that there's a bright future. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I do. And, that's what I wanted in the first place. I just, before this all happened, I put some things down that said, these are the things that you need to do for this program, to make it successful. And I think, obviously, I think an assistant coach was number one, full-time assistant. I think that would do wonders. But yeah, I think they are going to be able to do that. And I think, they're interviewing people this week on campus. So their hiring is going to happen fast. And they're just trying to get somebody in here right away so they can continue to recruit and retain the people that are already here.
I know the NWCA and Mike Moyer have committed to providing full scholarships for not just the new head coach, but the assistant coaches to attend the very comprehensive CEO Leadership Academy. How important is that dedication by the NWCA and what they've done to the future success of this program?
Well, you can't give Mike Moyer and the NWCA enough credit. They came in and put a plan together, and it worked. I think it's as Mike would say, this is the gold standard. We wish it wouldn't have to be a gold standard, as far as saving programs. But I think, the way things worked out for us here at Northern State, it was unbelievable, what happened and, how fast it happened. And, for Mike, the NWCA to give scholarships to two of the coaches, that's just a great gesture. And it just shows how much they care about wrestling, in the community.
I know that you believe in this sport from what you've been able to get out of it, from what you've put into it, the time, dedication, love that you and your family have shown this sport. I don't know that we can thank you enough, but what you're doing right now and talking about a program you're leaving or turning over is, I think that says even more about the character of the man and what wrestling has done for you. What has wrestling done for you? Your words.
Well, wrestling is it's always been a one-on-one sport, and it's always been a sport where you go through a lot of adversity. And I think over the years, that's what it's taught me is, there's a lot of tough situations out there, but, most likely wrestling, you've gone through things that no other man or woman's ever done in their life. And I think those are the things that, get you to where you're at, and as you become older and as an adult, and whether you're wrestled or coached or not, I think just the life lessons that wrestling gives you makes you the man you are. And I think that's exactly for me, over the years, and where I've come. And it's just when a problem exists, it's just problem solve it. You think it's worse somewhere else, or things, I've done things worse than this. And that's kind of how I try to look at things is, there's, I've done a lot of hard things in my life, and you know what, that's the way it goes. You just got to be prepared to take that on, and instead of laying down.
So pretty much on your own. Okay, that's the way it's been. You've been the head coach. A lot of the decisions, a lot of things that have been established have been done because you did them. Now there's going to be a corporate advisory team that will be developed and work around the wrestling program to assist with continued development, accountability, and growth of the program. How important is that to the future, and do you see that as a model for other teams around the country that are either challenged or that could be challenged? Is that, as Mike Moyer called it, perhaps the gold standard?
I believe it is. I think that you have to start getting your CEO skills. You have to have a corporate, committee like we have set up to ensure success. One, accountability. When you have what they're just given to the Northern State Wrestling Program, there needs to be accountability. Before that, it was just always, oh, you got what you got, do the best you can. Well, now it's a little different. Now it's, hey, you got a lot here to work with. Now expect results. And I think sometimes pressure is a good thing, and I think that if you don't have that pressure of, them telling you need to get going to this, that, then you think the status quo is fine. Where I think now, you're going to have that pressure to be successful. You're going to have that pressure. You're going to have the money and the resources to do the things that, maybe I wasn't able to do, but I'm excited to see it happen. Like I said, I want to be a lifetime Northern State Wolves wrestling fan, however way I can do that, and it might take a little time to heal, for myself and the university at this point in time, but, I have no feelings against the new coach or what's going to happen. I only wish the best, because it's only going to help our community in wrestling, and that's how I look at that.
Well, you and I may have a distinct love for the sport, and while we are talking specifically about wrestling, perhaps I think it is important to note that other athletic offerings on college campuses around the country will be challenged like wrestling is, and they are in some cases already, but they are going to have to set up and establish their own programs, their own sustainability models. And let's face it, the fund The funds, I think, for athletic departments traditionally that they've been able to dip into traditionally are going dry. The wells are going dry, and there needs to be a different approach and a different look at how to fundraise, how to make sure that programs have futures, both financially and when it comes time to compete. Would you agree with that? I mean, we're not alone, are we?
No, absolutely not. After more and more I read about how things are going, the landscape of college, the minor sports are going to have to start fending for themselves. And a lot of times, sometimes the foundations aren't big enough to do the work. And, so that puts it on the shoulders of the coaches and assistants. And I think them stepping out and, Mike Moyer is a great tool to ask him, how do we start? How do we get going? If they need help. But, I think the model it needs to happen, and I think people need to wake up and see what's happening because, with mid-American sports and things starting to maybe paying athletes, things like that. I mean, that's gonna eliminate programs right there, just for what it's going to cost these schools to, give this extra money to these athletes. So I don't think all the smaller sports or maybe the Olympic sports will say need to get going here. Need to set up some things in place so they don't get dropped.
And sadly, there are many colleges, many universities around the country that have no business being in the game of football. Some I would even challenge for basketball, but when it comes to accountability, dollars spent versus productivity, and what the end result is, there are a lot of football programs, the majority of the football programs that lose a tremendous amount of money and can be a very destructive force when it comes to a broad range of athletic opportunities on college campuses. It's a harsh reality. We saw Hofstra after winning a championship that particular year, again winning a championship, drop its football program. They could no longer afford, and the model was not sustainable. They were scheduled, I think, if memory serves, to lose $5 million in a year where they won a championship. That's a tremendous amount of money in a championship year.
Absolutely, I agree with you, and that's the thing is that most people when they're watching sports on television, whether it's basketball and football, just see that they see the top 20. They don't see the teams that are struggling and the teams that are maybe not in the top 50. And those programs may be losing money and but it's the front porch of their university. Those are the things that the university feels that is necessary to keep some things. With Hofstra dropping football, I'm sure that was a big shock as well. But $5 million a year is a lot of money to be losing.
And that's in a good year.
Yeah, that's a good year.
Pat Timm, it's been our pleasure. I don't know what's next for you, my friend, but I surely would like to know when that happens. We'd love to be able to let the wrestling public know because you've been an important part of it. You've been an incredible steward for not just the Northern State program, but for wrestling in general. We know that your wife has been very supportive of your family, etc. But the wrestling fans out there know who you are. They understand what you've done, and on their behalf, I'd like to extend a very special thank you for what you've done and for how long you've done it. And surely we don't want to lose you to any other form of work, but we'd love to have you stay in wrestling in any way, in any capacity, and I hope that happens.
Yep. Thank you so much for the kind words and appreciate the interview.
You bet. I'm Scott Casper for Takedown. Our guest has been Pat Timm. He's been in the Nike hot seat today, and we appreciate you wrestling fans that have shown your support for the Aberdeen-based program at Northern State, and we look forward to its continued growth and its future success. For all of us at Takedown, thanks for watching this very important interview.